Welcome, dear audience, to a crap simulation special, the series dedicated to reliving the events of the clown world that somehow actually happened and no, we weren't dreaming. Like that time Biden's handlers hired a they-them to be their nuclear safety guy, but then got caught stealing women's luggage from airports, and the only reason he got found out was because he wore a fashion designer's prototype clothing to a televised event. Could not get any more dumber than that. All the time Logitech had the idea of a subscription service to a computer mouse, and when everybody found out about it, suddenly they never had plans to release one. You did, you liars! All that time, a Pentagon whistleblower came out publicly stating that the US has alien tech, and everything he knows comes from second-hand sources. So the masses were like, hey, that's really cool. Can we see some of this evidence, please? No, says the Pentagon, but you can definitely trust us. We have all the aliens and space lasers. Yeah, that one's probably gonna need its own crap simulation when we get there. Oh, and how could I forget about the last one? That time they shot Peanut the squirrel. How dare you put another Harambe on us so soon? The world wasn't ready for more heartbreak. But there's one thing that put the icing upon the clown world. Something that truly could have torn the fabric of the United States to pieces and destabilized the world for another 4 years. Although let's be fair, Biden's handlers are trying to do that right now. So for this crap simulation special, it's Reeee Oswald, the rangefinder, and the Orange Man. Now, jobs can be pretty damn dangerous. You have the oil industry, the port industry of like cranes and shit, the metalworks industry, and of course, the office environment. But before you say, what the cracker barrel fuck are you talking about, LRCW? Well, audience, statistically, you're more likely to die of cringe from an office than falling off an oil rig into the North Sea. Like that time I overheard a colleague asking what the thickness of a 70 by 70 by 6 angle is, after working for the company for 5 freaking years. Fergus, you twat! It's literally in the name! But surprisingly, it actually turns out the most dangerous job you can have is in fact being the President of the United States of America. Yes, in the history of the tea-dumping states of America, there have been a total of 4 assassinations of sitting presidents and 1 almost assassination of Big Daddy Reagan. And even when you're not the president anymore, you're still in big trouble. Like Roosevelt, who just wanted to settle down on a farm, raise a couple of piglets, maybe start a podcast or something, but little John Scranky Boy went on full Reeee mode and attempted a pointy point poot poot on the Roosevelt. But it failed miserably. So I bet he feels silly now. Oh, and how could I forget those 2 skanks who tried to take out my Gerald Ford? You leave him alone, he makes great cars. And surprisingly, that list is only the ones that got past the plotting stage. Basically, it'd be dangerous to be anywhere near the White House. So it takes balls of steel to put yourself out there. It takes courage to know that playing the game of the White House, you will always carry a large target on you, because there's a whole load of retardies out there sipping on their soy milk. Now, if you aren't aware, the story of the Don in the presidency goes long back, all the way to 2016, when he won the Electoral College after defeating Hillary Clinton in a 1v1 winner arrest the other battle royale. And during the 4 years of the Orange Rule, he did many things, like telling Kimmy Boy to calm his vagina, and then told the German government to stop collapsing their own economy with stupid policies and diversify their energy grid from an over-reliance on the Russian fuel. So they laughed at him, and then their economy collapsed. And some people were very salty about all of that presidenting he did, especially Hillary Clinton and the media, who, instead of remaining objective and holding his presidency to account in a mature and adult manner, they lost their lead-poisoned minds. Like that time he said that there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville and it was really racist, even though they edited out the part where he condemned neo-1940s Germany men and white supremios. But the gullible toilet brains who were too stupid to do their own research believed the whole thing. Oh, but what about that time when he called fallen soldiers suckers and losers? Even though that never happened and was entirely made up. Even John Bolton, who hates the Orange Man, said it was a complete lie. But still, the manipulation from the media continued. And even abroad in other countries, like the once great nation of the United Kingdom, it was all over the media and the people lapped it up like the good little establishment sock puppets they are. And come 2020, the people of America had had enough. They were tired of all the lies that he told and all the Snopes fact-checking, so the people of America took a fat stash of their neighbors' mail-in ballots, ticked that Biden box, forgot the crease to paper, and delivered them at 3 a.m. to a polling station through the back door, where it was suitcased and hidden underneath a desk, ready to be counted after a fake water leak broke out and they had sent all the poll watchers home. But don't worry, there was nothing suspicious about that at all, because Snopes said so. God bless those 81 million Democrat voters who failed to turn up in 2024. Oh, but they did in Pennsylvania. So the Trump man was out, tossed into the wilderness to enjoy his time golfing and working part-time at McDonald's. He even tried his hand at waste management, although in the end that did not work out for him. The peaceful life, so to speak, just enjoying his time with his family and friends. Oh wait, sorry, that was every other establishment president, because what actually happened to the Orange Man was a complete boa constrictor of shit. There were the indictments, ludicrous convictions, and civil lawsuits based on episodes of Law and Order. Not to forget either the media articles claiming that the second coming of the 1940s Germany man was upon us. And of course, the late night talk show hosts pushing constant hate narratives at their paymasters' behest, who, unknown to anyone, still have viewers. Seriously, America, can you check that I actually removed the lead from the petrol, please? Now, for anyone who isn't retarded, they would have learned by now that there is an entire apparatus of special interest groups and ideological cultists behind the scenes that have infected multiple institutions with big money deals to actively push propaganda. Just like Larry Fink said, we need to force behaviors on the people. And then Disney releases The Acolyte with BlackRock as their second largest shareholder. Go figure! So there are a lot of people out there who gobbled up the manipulated narratives without question and refuse to hear reasoned counter-arguments. Just like all the monks who turn up to protest, and when they're asked what they're protesting about, they just get mad because they can't explain it. Now, I like to call these people the clapping seals of the world. The NPCs who downloaded their worldview through others instead of actually critically thinking for themselves and sourcing the real evidence and not news spun by big money interests. You don't have to like the Orange Man or his policies, but to have a literal re-raging meltdown goes beyond political discourse and straight into the realm of a cultist. Like that time the Democrats were pushing to remove Donnie's Secret Service protection, and the clapping seals were absolutely begging for it, because everybody knew what the Democrats were trying to do here. But when they lost that game, it would not stop the deranged toilet brains anyway from trying. It was July the 13th, 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania, when the sun shone down upon bottle green grass and slightly sloped rooftops. Yes, too hot they were for human touch and too pitched to perch upon. And down on the old farmyard, slowly the construction of the Trump stage was coming together, for tonight was the night of the big rally. But close by, unknown to all, a Reeee was brewing from Home Depot, as a ladder of dreams was being purchased at checkout number 3. It was a glorious ladder, a strong ladder, a ladder that was invisible to law enforcement. It will be a stairway to heaven, so to speak. And once that strong aluminium frame was loaded up in the car, another item was on that list of Reeee, and that came in the form of 5.56 caliber bullets. And so come 6 p.m, the sea of red hats and yeehaws sung loudly from the crowds as the Orange Man stepped his foot upon the stage as the music blasted that he's proud to be an American because at least he knows he's free. Which is really nice for those tea-dumping traitors. Because over here in Little Eggland, we get arrested if we ask the local boatman to stop stabbing our kids. What a shithole country. But as he speaks, elsewhere things are starting to get suspicious. For you see, the slightly pitched rooftops were too high and the temperature too hot. But a trail of pumpkin spiced latte was skid marking its way up the eaves of a unit close by. And as the Orange Man spoke of the Haitians eating the cats and dogs, suddenly Trump fell over and was swamped by Secret Service agents. And that was basically it. He got up, was slightly injured, and off to the retirement villages he goes. So I guess that's the video over. Nothing to see here. Everything is fine. But wait a minute, why are there now reports surfacing that Trump just survived an assassination attempt when CNN told us that he just fell over? Why are all the media outlets lying when CNN already had the scoop on this one? They are the most trusted name in news. Oh right, it's because they either didn't bother watching the video that they themselves were recording, or they honestly thought they could try and lie their way out of the clearest assassination attempt ever attempted in the history of attempting. Yeah, no wonder the legacy media is currently imploding. It's just like that time Trump had Alzheimer's because he walked down a ramp slightly cautiously. As what had happened was the mere slightest tilt of the orange globe had caused one of the 8 total bullets to just scrape the air. Yes, that's right, audience. Illegal immigration actually saved Trump's life. Thanks, Biden, you actually just did the world an absolute solid right there. But as Trump put himself on the ground, the Secret Service heroically threw themselves upon him, for they had sworn an oath to protect his life at all costs. Well, that would have been almost all of them, because once again the DEI hire shows themselves to be the token inclusion that they are, while everybody else is competently carrying out their jobs. What the fuck is she doing? I'm gonna be brutally honest here. If the UK had Secret Service protection and she was positioned to be Keir Starmer's protector, she would be flat out on her ass at the drop of a Londoner richer. Because when it comes to protective services, you cannot throw out meritocracy. It's retarded. She should honestly be ordering the sunglasses, not wearing them. But alas, it is 2024 after all, where you can walk into a female-only changing room with a bow in your hair and big fat hairy fucking balls flapping off all over the place. So I guess that also means you could be Secret Service protection to a 6'3" male when you are a midget. But as Trump is swamped by the men doing their job upon the slightly sloped rooftops above, a ghostly counter-sniper team magically appears out of nowhere at the exact time they were meant to, and suddenly the echoing Reeee stopped at the firing of one bullet. And as Trump stood with blood pouring down his face and Daisy still thinking about all those tacos she's cooking later, the most iconic photo of the century explained exactly why every other country on the fucking planet had behaved themselves when he was the president. Cold, hard fucking strength. Now, it's said that you truly show yourself in times of adversity, and for all the lies and manipulation the media has spread that infected the minds of the gullible toilet brains, there is one thing they can no longer slander him with: the accusation of being a coward. I mean, I'm 6'2", I've got tattoos, and I used to ride motorbikes and listen to dirty, stinking heavy metal, but if you put me in a room with a wasp, I am done. I turn into the biggest pussy on the planet. I hate those bastards. But this guy is 78, he's just got shot, he's been bundled by a bunch of men, but still gets up fist pumping. It was the coolest shit ever witnessed in the history of witnessing. And that strength to stand up and do that when facing your own mortality didn't go unnoticed by the most unlikely of people. Like the Zucco man who called it the most badass thing he's ever seen in his life, or maybe even Chanky Boy, the Soy Lord in Chief, who described it as a courageous act, while obviously softly reeing into his pillow. But what mattered the most, and was quite possibly the reason why he got the trifecta, was none other than Elon Musk, who, upon watching the video, immediately endorsed the Trump man. Because after all, why wouldn't you? Especially as you're the world leader in manufacturing electric cars, but when Biden hosts an EV event praising the industry leaders, he doesn't even invite you. But amongst the political discourse and those calling for a lowering in temperature, even though they're the ones who raised it in the first place, you know, with like blood red speeches calling half the country Nazis, let's not forget the cretinous cockroaches that crawled out from underneath their cuck sheds to feast upon the salty surprises that their wives' lovers left on their bedsheets. Yes, that's right, audience. Destiny, the guy who chose a stripper's name and totally went with it. The fake man who argued that it's actually a good thing that his wife is getting a train ran on her every single night while he streamed next door. But sadly, she ran off with another man and he no longer has a wife. It's so sad. As we all know, Trump wasn't the only victim of that day. Two men, David Dutch and Jim Copenhaver, were seriously injured. And Corey Compitore, who was there enjoying his time with his family, was killed in a hail of bullets. Pretty much goes without saying that all three did not deserve this. They come to support their politician, just as the people who turn up to support the Democrat politicians. Although sometimes that's nobody, or they had to pay for it. But I'd like to think that if the day came when it was the opposite way around, the left and the right would say that political violence is about as intelligent as going to airports and stealing other people's luggages only to wear the clothing on televised events. But little Destiny just couldn't shut his little yapping mouth and show his fellow countrymen who think differently than him just a little bit of respect. Oh, he went full on political violence is a good thing when it happens to the other side, and then laughed at a father dying in front of his children because once again, they didn't share the same opinion as him. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Especially those who look like this. What was that Tyson quote again? Now usually you'll brush it off and go, yeah, well, when it comes from a male who lets countless other men rail his wife, the opinions are quite invalid. We should all just do the grown-up thing and ignore the little dweeb. But that wasn't what happened, because he got booked for interviews that were purposely intended for rage bait clips on YouTube, while at the same time raising his profile amongst the toilet brains. If there was a reason to cancel someone, well, probably should be this guy. But enough about feminine men, as all major historical events must have a counter, because maybe things aren't always as they seem. Sure, the orange man may have been standing there talking about illegal immigration and then got Shooty McGun-gunned, but was it real? I mean, was there really a bullet and did it really hit his ear? Of course not! The internet said so! He set the whole thing up to win all those votes, you twats! He was trying to Ronald Reagan the election and win all the states minus Minnesota because, you know, lead poisoning. And if you're thinking, right, that Trump really had blood running down his face, and LRCW, you're talking utter shite, well, then you would be wrong. Dead wrong with AIDS, because what you didn't realise is that you can actually buy blood capsules from Amazon. And what about that photo? Convenient that American flag was there, right? Just appeared at the right time at the right angle? Well, obviously, it was just a photo op. Well, that was what they were saying on the internet until a still taken from video footage clearly showed the bullet passing Trump's head. Which meant maybe, okay, there was a real gun and Trump was really fired at. Yep, okay, so the conspiracy was wrong. But little do you realize, audience, the orange man was in on it the entire time. He set the whole thing up. Yes, he paid Reeee Oswald cold hard cash to mount a slightly sloped roof on a hot day with an AR-15, then point the weapon at him, and as the Call of Duty sniper team veteran that he was, aimed just leftwards to his head and pulled that trigger with live ammunition. Alright, so what did Reeee get in return? Well, money obviously, so he could go buy a Ferrari. Oh wait, sorry, my bad, he got pumpkin spice right in the face. Get the fuck out of it. How dumb can people get? Who would pay a dork like this to literally shoot at them? Like, okay, so there are some conspiracy theories out there that have some kind of fire within the smoke. Like 9/11, you can see why people believed it was a false flag event to give legitimacy for the invasion of Iraq. You know, similar thing happened with the CIA Cuba false flag plan that JFK refused, then mysteriously got grassy knolled in the head as well. And that's not to mention the very suspicious tower failure. Oh yeah, and how could I forget, the passports that they found detailing exactly who did it. Sure mate. Or maybe the conspiracy that mail-in voting was used as a method of voter fraud. Nah, that could never happen. It is the most securiest method of voting in the history of voting, and even when us Brits tried it, the Labour Party, who definitely aren't exactly like the Democrats, definitely didn't create fraud factories and a bunch of people went to jail. But to really add jet fuel to that fire, did you know that the day after the assassination attempt, Trump actually went golfing? Yes, he was mini-putting it all the way to the bank. He didn't even have his ear hanky either. Oh, alright, sorry, that turns out it was fake too, because the internet people just took a photo from Google and claimed it was Trump golfing. Well, I guess it's a good job you Americans don't have a Ministry of Truth, because if you did, everyone's going to jail for misinformation. And then came the next part of the story. Who did the hit job? Was it Hillary Clinton? Was it Stormy Daniels? Or was it that unnamed source at the White House who seemed to be at every conversation Trump has ever had? Were they also the same people who exposed Trump for trying to flush top secret documents down the toilet by taking a photo of it with zero other evidence and the media legit printed it as a real story? Seriously, the amount of toilet brain you need to believe that one is off the scales. Well, it was very, very surprising to find out it was none of them. It was in fact Thomas Reeee Cooks, better known by his alias Reeee Oswald, and upon the naming of the man, immediately the narrative was being spun. Reeee was a registered Republican and he was yeehawing the conservative red hat wave, but he also hated the orange man, so tried to yeetus deletus him. And of course, all the clapping seals who do zero research and suckle on the floppy donkey dick of the mainstream media regurgitated that line across the entire internet. You see, Republicans, even the orange man is not liked by his own base. And Mitch McConnell is the true heir to the GOP. Well, that was until other pieces of information began to surface, like the fact part of the Democrat tactic was to register as a Republican during the primary season and vote against their most disliked candidate. Which in this case would have been the orange man, because the world would be much safer with Nikki Haley now, right? Yeah, sure buddy. But okay, was there any evidence of this? Kinda, because it was also found that Reeee had donated to Act Blue, a Democrat donation site that acts to do Democrat things. Basically, full lefty shite. I guess it's a shame the mainstream media didn't make a bigger fact of that one when the headline kept calling him a registered Republican. Okay, so we have the dork, we have the indications of his political ideology. Was there anything else? Of course not! The FBI couldn't find anything on him. He was like a mysterious ghost. But how could this be when they were so good at foiling the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot? Oh wait, sorry. They set that one up and then arrested the people they coaxed into doing it. Oh, good luck in the next administration, you three-letter alphabet twats. So again, like most things these days, it fell on the armchair detectives of the world to find out who the man who Reeee was. And what no one saw coming was the fact he had read himself straight into a BlackRock promotional video. You know, BlackRock, the investment and financial services company that helped pioneer the ESG DEI cringe that infested Disney with AIDS. Basically, they're the social manipulators. But they fail at every corner because little do they realize normal people don't actually care if you're black, gay or a woman. It's 2024, not the 1800s. Well, unless you're a Secret Service agent charged with protecting a 6'3" male, then everybody actually cares. And rightfully so. But finally, we were gonna get the answers to what allowed such a fuck up to happen. And it came in a form of Kimberly Cheetle, the Secret Service director, who was incredibly eager to put to rest the deafening loud questions that the entire world wanted answered. And by incredibly eager, she had to be subpoenaed to the House Committee, where it quickly came to light that she was full of utter shite. How many bullet casings were on the roof, Kim? I'll have to get back to you on that one. How did your opening statement get leaked to specifically left-wing media outlets before this committee, Kim? I have no idea how my statement got leaked to specifically left-wing media outlets. Why were there no counter-sniper teams on the roofs of the building that were in clear line of sight of the ex-president? It's because they were too sloped and it was a hot day. Yeah, she said that when there were clear counter-snipers on the roof right behind the orange man. Alright, was that slightly sloped rooftop identified as a security risk? Yeah, it was. Oh, okay, so where were the officers covering that roof? Those guys, yeah, so they were in the offices inside the building. Oh, right, it also says here that you had already identified Reeee as a suspicious person who also had a rangefinder. Why was Trump allowed to go on the stage? I don't know. Well, that's fucking retarded. Ma'am, I don't think you should resign. You should be fired. You're a DEI horror story. Alright, so the head of the Secret Service just got roasted on live TV and the transcripts of whatever showed that she was hired based on diversity bingo tickets. And instead of providing any real answers to the world, and of course having the dignity and failure just to come clean, she ends up rage quitting and getting away with her complete incompetence. But what actually happened that day? From start to finish, how did a milquetoast retarded dog actually end up unloading not only one, but 8 shots at the 45-47 President of the United States of America by a fucking landslide? Well, ain't that a story? It was July the 4th when every normal red-blooded American was firing up their barbecues to celebrate dumping all of our tea bags into the fucking harbor. But retarded isn't a normal person. He's retarded. So searches for details on Trump's upcoming rally on the internet internet while everybody else was having fun. And 2 days later, begins searching online for the OG retardee and how far he was away from Kennedy. And then tries matching it up to the Butler rally. Well, it turns out he's shit out of luck because there are no grassy knolls in Butler. Just slightly sloped rooftops which were far too hot to worm your way up. But hell have no fury like a Reeee scorned. And the next day, he decides he will go down and check out for the vantage points. So come July the 13th, he had read too hard and it would be the day of all days. Where of course, he would save democracy by eliminating the opposition's leading candidate because, you know, democracy is only democracy as long as it's your own candidate who gets in. And by 10 AM, after purchasing a ladder from the Home Depot that was never seen again, he arrives at the rally spending 70 minutes snooping around the place. Which probably isn't too uncommon as unlike the barren car parks for Biden, Trump actually drives big crowds and they come early. But by 1:30 in the afternoon, he had already returned home telling his parents that he was off to the shooting range. So his dad thinks, you know what, my son is so shit at shooting, couldn't even make it onto the shooting team. Here you go, son, have an AR-15, you've earned it. And come 3:50, retardee returns to the rally site with a drone to survey the setup. And some people were pretty angry about that. Why was he allowed to fly a drone all over the site? Was there no rules to prevent such a thing? Well, in all fairness, would it really be that uncommon to see a drone before the start of the big rally? If I was there and I had a drone, well, yeah, I would probably fly one up as well. But from here on out, drones or not, everything starts getting absolutely retarded. And that came with the first suspicions that started at 4:26, when a counter sniper was on the way out after finishing up his shift, and notices someone was reeing on a park bench close by just outside of the warehouse. So he alerts the other counter sniping team that a they-them was not only a dork, but he also managed to park up next to him in the parking lot. So he makes a point when he's outside to show him that he's got a gun and the counter-sniper team were inside the building. But definitely not the roof because that would be far too hot and sloped to get up. And by 5:10, the law enforcement spots crooks again, and this time is named as a suspicious person of interest. This is an hour before the rally starts, and because the local law enforcement aren't dumb heads, they finally alert their command that there's a pretty weird kid hanging around. But that was the only smartly bit that happened, as for some reason, because it was outside of the rally's perimeter fence, he wasn't approached and questioned about what the fuck he was doing there. You know, suspicious guy, looks a bit weird, might try and assassinate the presidential candidate, but don't worry, he's outside the fence, guys, so definitely can't do it. Nope, there's not a grassy knoll tall enough to get a shot off. Okay, so we're getting closer to when the orange man comes. And at 5:38, just 30 minutes or so until he arrives, one of the counter sniper units is getting really twitchy about all that reeing going on outside. So it takes a look out of the window to see the same kid who has already been called in as a suspicious person now using a fucking rangefinder and looking directly at the stage. And close by to him is now a push bike with 2 bags. But what's in the bags? Don't know because no one went out and questioned him. Okay, but these guys are still on the ball. So the counter sniper takes a photo of Dorkman and calls it into command where Secret Service are notified that there is a weird kid out there. Now in any normal scenario, you'd think, alright, well, we've got to go check this kid out and make sure he hasn't got an AR-15 hanging out somewhere. So then they didn't do any of that and instead just think, alright, he's using a rangefinder, we'll go get him when we need to go get him. No need to worry. But little did they realise those scorching, slightly sloped rooftops were absolutely no issue to a big old Reeee. And outside at 5:56, round the back of the building where the AC units were, retardee climbs onto the unguarded roof. Because remember guys, it's outside of the perimeter fence, so he couldn't possibly assassinate the president 150 meters away. But what he did not account for was the rally goers who have better investigative skills than the Secret Service and law enforcement combined, for they were quite literally screaming that there was a guy on the roof and he has a gun and he was making his way up to the top. I mean, they even recorded it, for Christ's sake. And this sends things into a shitstorm because as the police became alerted to this, not one Secret Service agent was ever told to pull the orange man off the stage. As a matter of fact, He was allowed on when someone was quite literally using a fucking rangefinder. You can see why a lot of people believe that this was an inside job. And as the local law enforcement responded to all those screams from the crowd pointing at the guy on the roof, one actually hoisted himself up to find Reeee pointing the gun towards him. This immediately should have been code red, and you can clearly see the counter sniper team being alerted to all the commotion, who somehow unknown to anyone was allowed on a sloped roof. Yeah, it's getting dumber and dumber, so come 6:11 PM, 3 minutes after Reeee was spotted on the roof with hordes of people screaming that he was there, and the counter sniper team behind Trump knew something was up too, the first shots were fired. 8 in total, and it took 15 whole seconds to get the responding shot that took out the Reeee. You know, a whole 15 seconds, that is quite literally enough time to empty a semi-auto mag. And here's something very interesting happened, because after the shots had rang out and word was already around the world that an assassination attempt had just been tried on the old Trumpy boy, Reee's parents must have known that something was wrong, as they called law enforcement themselves to report that their son was missing and he had a gun. However, even more information dropped, and this was a little bit alarming. Remember earlier I squeezed out that line about how the FBI sets up their own citizens to commit crimes? You know, like the Gretchen Whitmore kidnapping plot? Yes, the throwaway line detailing how the FBI were actively coaxing people into crimes. Well, here comes the tinfoil hat. Because the Heritage Foundation claimed that they had found a little bit of evidence that maybe this whole thing isn't what it looks like, and indeed that jet fuel never melted those steel beams. Because by tracking phone data in and around Reee's home and workplace, something interesting was discovered. One particular device seemed to do a lot of traveling to and from the residence, and specifically was traveling all the way from Gallery Place in Washington, D.C., which also just so happens to be in the vicinity of the FBI headquarters. Smells real fucking fishy if those claims are true. But will we ever find out what happened there? Because let's be honest, if the FBI are willing to set up their own civilians to carry out crimes, then maybe they are willing to pull off this one, considering the Orange Man is gonna make them pay for what they have done to him. You know, in case he wins the election. Which he did. Who knows what will be discovered in the years to come, but we should never underestimate the power of the government deep states. And big money interests. Oh, and Hillary Clinton, don't underestimate that bitch. How many whistleblowers is it now? Far too many. But no story would be complete without mentioning the media, and how they handled the attempted assassination, because they spent the entire time calling him the Orange Hitler Man, and how he was a threat to not only democracy, but the entire country itself. And of course, he could make himself president for life because he joked about that once, so it must be true. Fuck me, do these guys ever stop with the bullshit? Well, actually, yes, precisely on the 6th of November when they found out Trump won by an absolute blowout. So suck it up, MSDNC, you're in a cult. Now, I'm not going to label any specific news organizations here because I don't want to get sued in case anyone actually watches this video. And of course, I live in the United Kingdom, where I'll probably end up doing 25 days to life. But the media were pretty much begging for this to happen. They wanted the Orange Man gone, and they knew all the vile lies and slander that they leveled at him would corrupt the minds of the toilet brain clapping seals. And of course, someone would finally take care of business. I mean, Christ, even after the attempt, when everyone was waking up to the fact that the vitriol was getting far too heated, they even blamed Trump for it, instead of turning down the temperature that they themselves turned up. Even in the Democrat Party, the bankrollers of the media, relentlessly they had attacked the Orange Man alongside all of his supporters with the full knowledge that it would stoke up real world violence, which has happened many times, as Maxine Waters said. Make those Republicans feel unwelcome. Wink wink, nudge nudge, here's a brick. Alright then, so Reeee tried to take down the Orange Man, but instead made him stronger than ever before. You've gotta feel like a special kind of dumbass after you went through all that trouble. But he won't because he's dead. Is there anything else? Anything more to the orange story? Did anybody possibly get any crazy ideas? Oh god, it's happening again. Everyone knows the orange man loves a bit of the old golf. He is the putt king in chief, so to speak. If he ain't out there entertaining the peasants, he's looking thick on the field. But as the ex-president and Republican nominee, typically the schedules of his private life is kinda kept secret. Don't want to alert all those retardies now, do we? And on the 15th of September 2024, the orange man hit a hole-in-one because it was a nice day out and he had come to kill some time. But unknown to anyone, another Reeee had screeched herself directly towards Trump's international golf course in Florida and was now lying in wait. So Trump finishes up on the 5th hole. It was a great hole. Some would say it's the best hole they have ever seen. But before he could carry on to the 6th hole, which is the greatest hole, the best hole, a lot of people are talking about it, his Secret Service took it upon themselves to make sure that it was safe. Kinda sad that after serving your country in the highest office, you have to get your own golf course swept at every single hole in case there are a whole bunch of retardies out there, but there we go, lead poisoning. Now Trump and his team were very smartly now, and his Secret Service detail was no longer full of daisies who can't even holster a weapon. He had beefed those bad boys up. And beefed they were, as while conducting the sweep on the 6th hole, one of them noticed a rather strange looking fellow who may or may not be on meth, hanging out in some bushes frequented by the parasitic paparazzi. But something was different. There was no camera this time, there was no pumpkin spice lattes or the orange man bad signs. It wasn't even fake news. Because this time, it was a pointy poot poot aimed directly towards the 6th hole. And in true yeehaw fashion, the Secret Service man got the blasting before asking any questions. Which in this case was a very smartly thing to do. And that Reeee in the bushes became a distant memory as a black Nissan screeched all the way down the road. But not before a bystander took a photograph of the exact car that he had escaped in and passed that on to law enforcement. What a very smartly decision. Because immediately an order was sent out to all the policemen to go find that car. And surprisingly, it didn't take that long at all, until the police caught up with him and our very special little guy was out of his truck and at gunpoint. Yes, definitely on the meth. But back at the golf course, after Trump was safely escorted away by competent men, another discovery was made, specifically an SKS rifle, 2 backpacks with bulletproof material inside, and a GoPro because he was legit gonna record the whole thing. Kind of wouldn't record myself committing one of the highest crimes in the land, but lead poisoning is a real thing and meth is one hell of a drug. Ooh, and then of course came the name. Yes, it was another Ryan Reesley Roof. Okay, so this time was different because the Secret Service were on the ball. And so were the law enforcement, so they had the guy alive and he was in custody. But what about his background? Did he drink all the fluoride in the water? And did he huff a whole load of leaded petrol? Probably. I mean, just look at the guy. And as the sleuths began digging into his past, it also turned out that he was a dirty liar. You see, Reesley Roof had a very large digital footprint where he claimed that he was an ex-Trump supporter who, after voting for him in 2016, was so triggered at the poor handling of the United States under his presidency with, world peace and that stuff. Once 2020 came along, he swore he would never support the orange man again and committed to paying sky-high petrol prices. And that was very interesting because according to photo records, he didn't even vote in 2016. But to add to the deranged TDS, he had also self-published a book. And within the e-pages was a bucket of diarrhea melting down. Oh, and also actively encouraging Iran to assassinate Trump. Pretty sure that's a crime in itself, and also is legit high treason against your own country. And further to that, it also turned out he was a big fan of Liz Cheney, because she loves getting Ukrainians killed, and he he also loves getting them killed as well. You know, in a war that should have been negotiated and peacefully resolved fucking years ago. Well, that was until Boris Johnson wanted the eastern streets of Europe to be dripping with blood, just so the military-industrial complex can sell even more Lear weapons. While at the same time, the paid-for shill media pushed the narrative that more war is good, Russia bad, Ukraine is a democracy even though they don't even have elections anymore. But that's not the only thing when it comes to the clown world that we live in, and obviously Reeee Roof is part of it. Because remember that time when a pronoun went into a school and, try not to get yeeted off YouTube here, did horrific things with a manifesto detailing why they wanted to do it and all of their motives. Then the DOJ refused to release it, so it ended up getting leaked anyway, showing the world that these deranged people are part of a death cult. Well, they had no issue in releasing Reeee Roof's manifesto where it claimed he would pay $150,000 to anyone who would take out the Orange Man, all because the President of the United States of America should embody the moral fabric of the Americans by being kind, caring, selfless, and always stand for humanity. Yeah, says the guy with over 100 convictions and also wants more Ukrainians to die in a war that could have ended and not escalated by big money interests. But don't worry, folks. BlackRock holds the contracts to rebuild the country once this whole thing blows over. Or blows up. Who cares? I'm just glad that these guys get to make all the money while our collective taxes from the UK and the Americans and most of NATO and all that crap gets to do BlackRock's dirty work. Alright then, so he's probably going to spend his entire life in prison even though he pleaded not guilty, which is the craziest shit I've ever seen. You were pretty much caught red-handed, you fucking idiot. So is there anything else to mention? Yeah, because then came the third attempt where on October the 12th outside of a Trump rally, Vem Miller was arrested for trying to gain access to the Trump man with fake IDs and multiple weapons found in his vehicle. And then everyone lost their shit. Oh, what? A third attempt? Have you Ree's lost your mind? Well, actually, no, because that one seems to be more of a misunderstanding than anything else. As it turned out, he was a massive MAGA fan and had multiple IDs because of name changes or something, and also loves guns. Who can blame him? They're beautiful after all. Alright then, so that clears up the third. Is there anything else? Yeah. Now the United States has Iranian death squads within the country and other terror cells all ring across the states to take out the Orange Man. Because when people want change, it's up to the retards to take care of business just so the deep state can keep on churning on. You know, back to the norm where we're funding endless wars, funding coups, running unsustainable deficits, then there's that woke mind virus crap, and then destabilize the Middle East even more, keep letting in all those lovely illegals, yeah, we have the same problem over here, America, and screw everyone who got murdered by them. Well, that concludes the crap simulation, and now I'm off to go pardon my son for gun and tax crimes, even though I promised I wouldn't. Big shout out to my Patreon boys and guys. Your support will come in handy when Big Daddy Stammer sends me to prison for hurty words on the internet, and then I need to pay the biggest they them in there to protect me from the bigots. Love you all very much, Lee.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.